Okay, good morning, good afternoon, guys. I hope y'all are having a good day so far. Today, we're going to be taking a look at assignment number 13, part 3. We'll be putting all of these parts together tomorrow when we do an activity in class and do practice problems this week. But for today, we need to take our notes on this last little bit of how to solve quadratic formulas. Today, we're going to be looking at solving quadratics by using the quadratic formula. Okay, this is like a very old way to do things, but we need to learn the formula. And that way we can have another tool in our toolbox on how to solve these equations. Today we'll define the steps to solve by using the quadratic formula. What you should be asking yourself as we go through these slides right here is, when can we use the quadratic equation? So what's the right time to use a quadratic equation? What's the right time to use completing the square, which we learned on Friday? And when's the best time to use factoring, which we learned right when we came back from Christmas break? Today we will define the steps to use the quadratic, it's not equation, it's formula. And you all will write the steps to use the quadratic formula. I kept writing the equation, but it's formula. Okay, so go ahead and copy these all down into your notebook. You'll split the page up into 4 pages, 4 sections. Well, what is the quadratic formula? You can use the quadratic formula basically when you have the standard form. So the first thing to understand is we need to have our equations in standard form. So that means we have some coefficient times x squared, coefficient times x, some coefficient in c, and then equal to 0. Now this is the actual formula right here. Okay, it looks complicated, but it's not that really. All we're doing is substituting in the coefficients in the right spot. Okay, x equals, so we can find any value of x for any equation by substituting the coefficients in. For negative b, this means plus or minus. When you see this together, it means plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c divided by 2 times a. Okay, we'll go little pieces. We'll break it down into little pieces, and we'll see how it works when we look at the examples. When can we use the quadratic formula? Well, the quadratic formula can be used to solve any quadratic equation. There is no equation that this will not work for. So it's like the last one on the list. Usually the factoring might be the easiest for me. Completing the square isn't too hard, but it takes a lot of steps. And the quadratic formula obviously is a lot of substitution and calculation, but it works for any kind of quadratic equation. And it works 100% of the time. We can solve any quadratic using quadratic formula. So what are the steps? Well, first we need to substitute the coefficients of a, b, and c into the equation. Maybe I can highlight these instead. Let's do a little highlight. We can highlight b, a, and c into the quadratic equation. Into the equation, into the formula. So I'll get this. Let's cross this out and call this the formula. Solve for x following order of operations, and then obviously let's be careful with mistakes and order of operations, the most important part. So let's see an example. First of all, let's identify what is our a, b, and c. A is the coefficient up here. And remember, if there's no number, it's always a 1. 1 times, let's say this is 1 times a. Okay. 1 times x squared, I'm sorry. So that's 1. A equals 1. B equals 7. And our c equals 4. Okay. We're going to take those and we're going to substitute them right into this equation. X equals negative 7 plus or minus the square root of negative 7. No, the 7 itself is positive. Okay, this negative came from the quadratic formula. Came from right there. We always add that negative. So I'm going to do 7 parentheses squared, because that's part of the formula, minus 4 is part of the formula. A is 1 and C is 4. going to divide all of this by 2 times a, which we said it was 1. Okay, so basically I had to identify first my a, b, and c. Then I substitute them into the formula, and now I'm going to start to simplify a bit. I keep this -7 out in the front. I keep this plus or minus. Down here on the denominator, I can just make that a 2. 2 times 1 is 2. Then I'm going to work within the square root. 7 times 7, or 7 squared, is 49. 4 times 4 times 1 is 16. Okay. I'm going to do what's inside of the radical first, keeping this and this the same. Keep the 2. Square root of 49 minus 16. I'm going to start using my calculator because I don't know how to. I mean, I could do that in my head, but I don't want to spend my energy right now doing that. Let's just use a calculator. 49 minus 16 is going to be 33. Now here's where it kind of gets a little bit tricky. I have 2 answers. The first is -7 plus the square root of 33, all divided by 2. And then the second one is -7 minus the square root of 33 divided by 2. This plus or minus means I have to split this off into 2 equations. Okay, one positive, one negative. Or one with the plus, one with the minus. Okay. And now I'm going to simplify these a little bit more. I don't know what the square root of 33 is on the top of my head, so I'm going to put this in my calculator. -7 plus the square root of 33. And I'm going to make sure that's all divided by 2. And I'm going to get -0.627. And for this one, I do -7. There's at least a couple different ways I know how to enter this into the calculator. So if you need help, you need to let me know. I know we don't go over calculators tools that often, but I should put it in the calculator like this. This division needs to go under both the -7 and the minus 30 square root of 33. And for that one, I get -6.372. So I've got 2 answers here. X is equal to -0.62 and X is equal to -6.3. Okay. If y'all need help, I would imagine that some of you will need help putting this into the calculator. We haven't really gone over how to set these up in the calculator, but you should have some experience from other classes, so just let me know. The next thing I want you guys to do is copy down these 4 practice problems. Here's the 4 problems. Let me zoom in. Okay. Here's the 4 I need you to copy down into your notebook. This one, this one, this one, and this one. I'm going to pause the screen there for about 10 seconds so that you can pause the screen if you need to and copy them down into your notebook. Okay, the first things we need to do, let me go over a couple of notes for you. Use the quadratic formula to solve the problems below. You will need to use a calculator to find the final answers. The first off that we need to know is you have to have it in standard form, which means you need all your x squared, your x terms, and your coefficients on the left side of the equal, and 0 or no numbers on the right side. So the first thing is I need to use FOIL or some other technique to multiply these out. X squared plus 5x minus x minus 5 equals 2. Simplify this. That becomes a 4x. Then I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides to cancel that out. That's going to become a -7. So then this is what I'm going to put into the quadratic formula. Okay, it has to look like this. Your x squared terms, your x term, and your constants on one side of the equal, and 0 on the other side. If it doesn't look like that, you need to manipulate the equation to get it into this form. Then you take these and you're going to put 1, 4, and -7 into the quadratic formula. Number 2, it's already set up, so you just have to identify your A, your B, and your C, and substitute into the formula. Okay, number 3, take a look. It doesn't look like, obviously the examples I showed you were x squared plus an x, but this is the same formula, or the same steps rather. You put your y squared term first, you put your y term second, and then you put your constants last, and it has to be 0. So we need to manipulate this such that all of the terms are on one side of the equation and all the other terms are on the other. So I would take this y, add it to the other side, cancel out, and I'm going to have 0 equals 2y squared plus 4y minus 6. Now check it out. I've got nothing on the left and everything on the right, but it doesn't matter because these are still my coefficients. As long as there's a 0 on one side and all the terms on the other side. Okay. You guys can work this one out on your own. You need to get it into the same form, which means you need to bring the 7 over before you identify your A, B, and C and substitute into the formula. Obviously, if you ever see a case where there is no A coefficient, B coefficient, or C coefficient, you're going to use 0 and substitute for those. Okay, please let me know if y'all get stuck or need help, because we will do some practice tomorrow on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday using completing the square, factoring, and quadratic formula.